This is the first part of the lesson for Objective 4. Today we're going to be looking at the quadratic formula. Now, just as a quick review, last lesson we learned how to solve equations that had just an x squared term. There's no x here. We learned that we could move everything to the other side by adding the 7, so that we had 3x squared equals 48, divide by the 3, and we ended up with x squared equals 16, and then we could take the square root of both sides to get that x was positive or negative 4. Okay, so we learned that last lesson. In the previous chapter we learned that if we had a trinomial, meaning if we had both the x squared and the x term, that we could take this and we could factor it into the two sets of parentheses, put the x's in front, find two numbers that multiply to give me negative 6, and then they add up, negative 6 and positive 1, to give me the negative 5, and then we could set each of these equal to 0 and solve that. And so we were able to find the answer that way. X equals 6 and x equals negative 1. And so we got two answers that way. Now, what we'll be looking at today, because we did do a couple of times in the last chapter where we found something that couldn't be factored. So, what if we end up with a quadratic equation equal to 0 that can't be factored? Okay, so let's go ahead and try to factor it first. We notice if I put the x's in front and two numbers that multiply to give me positive 1 and negative 3. Well, the only numbers that multiply to give me 1 and 1 is 1 and 1. If I put the negatives there as they should be, the negatives multiplying to give me a positive and adding to give me a negative, it still only gives me negative 2. So there's no way that I can factor this using nice numbers. So what do? I have to use the quadratic formula. Okay, now the quadratic formula comes from using the standard form of the equation. You'll remember we talked about this before, ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, the quadratic formula only works when the equation is equal to 0. Okay, so make sure that it's equal to 0 first. In this case it is. The quadratic formula is this: x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. Now I know that sounds like a lot, but this is something that you will all memorize. There's actually another video on YouTube which you can link to from Blackboard that will help you to learn and memorize this. There's also a song that goes something like "Pop Goes the Weasel," but I don't exactly know how it goes, but it goes something like negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Something like that. But anyway, that's what we're using. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so what we're going to do is we are going to take these numbers from standard form and put them into my equation. So x is going to be equal to negative b. Now b was negative 3, right? So I had a was equal to 1, b is equal to negative 3, and c is equal to 1. So I'll put these numbers in. Negative b, so negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. Okay, I'm going to bring it up here so I have a little bit more space. I'm just going to rewrite it. Now this takes a little bit of time, but it's just algebra. Negative 3 will give me a positive 3, plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared is 9, minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 1 is 4 again, so 9 minus 4, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. And so x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. Now this is an acceptable answer if it asks for the exact answer, if it just asks for the value of x. If it asks you to put it as a decimal, then I actually need to take this and write it in two different ways. One of them is going to be x equals 3 plus the square root of 5, and then all of that divided by 2. The other one will be 3 minus the square root of 5, all of that divided by 2. Okay? And so this you should be able to put into your calculator, and you should get a answer. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull up my calculator. And we're going to go 3 plus the square root of 5. So we're going to go 5 inverse square, so that'll be the square root of 5. So 3 plus the square root of 5 is equal to 5.236 divided by 2, and I get an answer. So x equals, and that was 2.62. And then the other one will be, we'll clear it, 3 minus the square root of 5 equals divided by 2. And that will give me 0.381, or just 38 is fine. No wonder I couldn't factor it. Those are the numbers I would have had to have right there. You'll notice that if those are both minus, they add up to -3, and if I multiplied those two numbers, it would multiply to give me 1. This is the answer, however. Let's go on to the next video.